Throughout ancient history, certain groups of people have stood apart, marked by unique customs and practices that set them aside from the societies in which they lived. Among the ancient Israelites, one such group were the Nazarites. Their practices were distinctive, their vows solemn, and their appearance unmistakable, most notably in the way they wore their hair. The Nazarite vow was not merely a private devotion. It was a public declaration, a lifelong or temporary commitment to set oneself apart for a sacred purpose. And at the heart of this visible separation lay the practice of never cutting one's hair, a symbol rich with meaning and history. To understand the Nazarite vow is to step back into the ancient biblical world, where spirituality and daily life were deeply intertwined. The Nazarite vow, described most fully in the book of Numbers, chapter 6, was a voluntary act of consecration to God. Those who took the vow, men or women, were bound by three primary restrictions. They were to abstain from wine and all products of the vine. They were not to come near a dead body, even if it was a close relative. And most notably, they were not to allow a razor to touch their head for the duration of the vow. The hair, left to grow untrimmed, was a visible sign of their separation and dedication. But what did this hair look like? The text says only that the hair was left to grow, but it does not specify the texture or style. Over the centuries, interpretations of this practice have varied, and some traditions and scholars have pointed to an intriguing possibility that the hair of the Nazarites was not only long but woolly in texture, resembling the tightly coiled hair often associated with people of African descent, and that over time, this hair would naturally form into locks, what we might today call dreadlocks. To explore this idea, we must consider both the biblical text and the broader historical and cultural context in which the Nazarite vow was practiced. The Israelites, as a people, lived in the ancient Near East, a crossroads of civilizations, peoples, and cultures. The land of Canaan, their promised inheritance, lay along the eastern shores of the Mediterranean, bounded by desert to the east and south and mountains and forests to the north. This was a region of diversity, where people of various ethnic backgrounds mingled and traded, fought and intermarried. Ancient Israel itself was not a monolithic society, but a tapestry of tribes, each with its own traditions and customs. The biblical record attests to a people who were descended from various ancestors, some of whom came out of Egypt, others who were native to the land, and still others who joined the Israelites through marriage or alliance. The physical appearance of the Israelites, therefore, likely reflected this diversity. Some may have had features more commonly associated with the peoples of Africa, including darker skin and tightly coiled woolly hair. The Hebrew language itself provides some intriguing clues. The word for Nazarite, Nazir, is derived from a root meaning to separate or to consecrate. In Numbers 6:5 it is written, "All the days of the vow of his separation, no razor shall come upon his head, until the days be fulfilled, in which he separates himself unto the Lord, he shall be holy, and shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow." The phrase locks of the hair is rendered in Hebrew as pera rosho, with pera meaning to let grow long and untrimmed. In the context of hair texture, tightly coiled or woolly hair left uncut for a long period tends to mat and lock naturally, forming rope-like strands that are today called dreadlocks. The connection between Nazarite hair and dreadlocks is more than linguistic. In many African cultures, the practice of growing hair into locks has held deep spiritual significance. The Maasai warriors of East Africa, for example, are known for their long, ochre-colored locks, a symbol of their status and strength. In Ethiopia, the Rastafarian movement has drawn upon biblical imagery, including the Nazarite vow, to justify the wearing of dreadlocks as a sign of spiritual devotion and separation from worldly concerns. Turning back to the ancient Near East, it is instructive to consider the physical anthropology of the region. Archaeological evidence, including depictions in art and descriptions in texts, suggests that many of the peoples of this area had a range of physical features, including hair textures that could accommodate the formation of locks. The famous depictions of the ancient Egyptians, Israel's southern neighbors, show a variety of hairstyles, some of which appear to be tightly curled or plaited. Egyptian wigs and mummies sometimes display hair that, when left uncut, would likely have formed into locks. One of the most famous Nazarites in the biblical record is Samson, whose story is told in the book of Judges. Samson's strength was legendary, and it was said to be linked directly to his uncut hair. The narrative describes how Samson's hair was never cut from birth, in accordance with the Nazarite vow made by his mother. The text uses the word locks to describe his hair, and when Delilah finally betrays him, she has his 7 locks cut off, robbing him of his strength. The use of the word locks suggests that his hair had formed into distinct rope-like strands, a process most easily achieved with tightly coiled woolly hair. The story of Samson, then, provides a vivid illustration of the physical appearance of a Nazarite. His 7 locks were not simply long hair, but hair that had, through years of growth and abstention from cutting, formed into thick strands, likely resembling dreadlocks. This image is reinforced by later traditions and artistic representations, which often depict Samson with long, matted hair. It is important to recognize that the Nazarite vow was not confined to a single ethnic group or hair texture. The vow was open to anyone among the Israelites, male or female, who wished to dedicate themselves to God. However, the physical realities of hair growth mean that the appearance of Nazarite hair would have varied according to the natural hair texture of the individual. For those with tightly coiled woolly hair, the result would have been locks. For those with straighter hair, the hair might have grown long and tangled, but would not have formed locks in the same way. Over time, the image of the Nazarite with long woolly locks became part of the broader cultural memory of the Israelites. The prophet Samuel, for example, is also described as a lifelong Nazarite, dedicated to God from birth. The tradition of not cutting his hair is mentioned, and it is likely that he, too, wore his hair in long, uncut locks. In later Jewish tradition, the Nazarite vow became less common, but its legacy persisted, influencing ideas about holiness, separation, and the symbolism of hair. The image of the Nazarite with woolly, locked hair has resonated far beyond the ancient world. In the modern era, the Rastafarian movement, which emerged in Jamaica in the 20th century, has drawn explicitly on the biblical Nazarite vow as a model for their own spiritual practices. Rastafarians wear their hair in dreadlocks, citing the Nazarite vow as a precedent for this practice. For them, the locks are not merely a hairstyle, but a sign of spiritual dedication, a rejection of Babylonian, i.e., corrupt, society, and a commitment to living in accordance with divine law. The symbolism of hair in religious and cultural traditions is deep and multifaceted. In many societies, hair is seen as an extension of the self, a marker of identity, and a sign of spiritual status. The act of growing, cutting, or covering the hair can carry profound meaning. In the case of the Nazarites, the uncut hair was a sign of their separation, their holiness, and their commitment to a higher purpose. The association between Nazarite hair and African-style dreadlocks is not merely a matter of conjecture. It is rooted in the historical realities of the ancient Near East, the physical anthropology of the peoples who live there, and the enduring power of religious symbols. The image of the Nazarite, with long woolly locks, is a testament to the diversity of ancient Israel, and to the ways in which physical appearance can become a marker of spiritual identity. But the story does not end in the ancient world. The legacy of the Nazarites and their distinctive hair continues to inspire and challenge people today. In a world that often seeks to erase or homogenize difference, the Nazarites stand as a reminder that true holiness is found in separation, in the courage to be different, and in the willingness to dedicate oneself wholly to a higher calling. The Nazarite vow, with its emphasis on visible, physical signs of spiritual commitment, challenges us to consider the ways in which our own lives reflect our deepest values. Are we willing to stand apart, to bear the marks of our convictions, even when they set us at odds with the world around us? The Nazarites remind us that holiness is not merely an inner state, but a lived reality, expressed in the choices we make and the way we present ourselves to the world. The enduring fascination with the Nazarite vow and with the image of long woolly locks speaks to a universal human longing for meaning, for identity, and for connection with the divine. In the tangled strands of Nazarite hair, we find a symbol of the complexity of human life, the interplay of body and spirit, and the power of tradition to shape and transform us. As we reflect on the story of the Nazarites and the rich symbolism of their hair, we are invited to consider our own journeys of faith and identity. What marks us as different? What signs do we bear of our commitments and our hopes? In a world that often values conformity, the Nazarites call us to a deeper and more courageous way of living, a way that embraces difference, honors tradition, and seeks always to dedicate the whole self, body, and soul to the pursuit of what is holy and true. The history of the Nazarites, then, is not just a story of the ancient past. It is a living tradition, a source of inspiration and challenge for all who seek to live lives of purpose and meaning. In their long, woolly locks, we find a symbol of the enduring human quest for holiness, and a reminder that true dedication is always marked by courage, by separation, and by the willingness to be transformed. Let us then honor the memory of the Nazarites and the powerful example they set. Let us recognize the beauty and significance of their hair, not merely as a physical trait, but as a symbol of their commitment to a higher calling. And let us be inspired by their example to seek out our own paths of dedication, to embrace the marks of our own difference, and to live lives that bear witness to the sacred in all that we do.